Okay, so I made up with Juan in the break, and now we can have a civilized discussion about this some more. It didn't take long for people to cut some ads about this. As Juan pointed out, there was a lot of money spent in this race, and everybody was watching it except for a rival network. Apparently, they wanted to watch the Jubilee instead. But here's a bite from an ad that we want to show you from America's Future Fund.
The front line of taking back Wisconsin.
We will recall and replace Scott Walker.
Your soon-to-be ex-governor.
Where do I sign?
And all these bully governors across the country, knuckle up! Knuckle out! We're in it to win it! Recall Walker!
We made a mistake doing that.
Does the result tell us something about November?
No, I don't think so. This is a gubernatorial race with a guy who was recalled. Has nothing to do with President Obama at the top of the ticket.
Probably won't tell us much about a future race.
A guy at the top of the ticket who happens to be Governor Walker, now Governor Walker. Kimberly, do you think there's something to be learned on a national level from this guy in Wisconsin?
We're not supposed to use the word teachable moment, right? So
I already did. I'm already banned.
Is there one in there? Sure. Are you kidding me? What this told me, the first thing was, especially with the wide margin, that he was able to sustain a victory very quickly, decisive, as Greg pointed out, being a math genius in 49 minutes, that there is momentum in the Conservative Party and in the Conservative Party's base, that they're going to be energized. And if they can keep this going, I think it's significant for President Obama. He really should be very worried about this.
Well, there was Sarah Palin was actually on Fox News Network last night. Let's take a listen to what she had to say about how this plays nationally and get Eric's reaction.
I think that the Democrats there understand that the president's no-show represents the fact that Obama's goose is cooked, as more and more Americans realize that what Wisconsin has just manifested via this vote, embracing austerity and fiscal responsibility, is a complete opposite of what President Obama and the White House represents today.
So it takes a while for results of your policies to show up. Do you think she has a point that as the Republican governors have more time, and that the Tea Party or the philosophy of getting back to more fiscal responsibility is taking hold?
Two things. Number one, Scott Walker he had a great campaign, but he also had fantastic policy that made a $3.6 billion budget shortfall either closed, depending on who you talk to, it's either closed or on its way to being closed. Whatever, it's in the right direction. That's important. In other words, run on record. Scott Walker ran on his record. He said, look, I'm doing exactly what I said I'm going to do, and it's working. President Obama can't run on his record, because what he's been doing, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He's going to, the dawn of a new America is coming. The problem is the dawn of a new America is more unemployment, more malaise. So he can't run. But Mitt Romney can run on President Obama's record, and he should. But the other point, the most important point here, the Tea Party is back. I don't care what you say. I wish Bob was here right now. I'd hold up that poster again and say, hey, Obama, you're next, because the Tea Party is going to come out and force, and they did that. They had a ground roots campaign. It was phone calls. It was door-to-door, knocking on doors, and it worked. A lot of passion in the race, Juan. And if you were advising the labor unions this morning, if they had a regrouping and a recalling, do you think that they can adapt and change along with it so that they can get some results for themselves so that they don't face this kind of loss again?
Well, I think the unions have to I think they need some public image damage control here, because the public image that's been foisted on them is that they are parasites on the society. And I mean, the history of labor unions in this country is absolutely totally different. I mean, gosh, I don't think people would have the standard of living. The middle class in America wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the emergence of labor unions in the middle of the 20th century.
But what have you done for me lately?
I think more and more people have moved on from labor unions. That's why in terms of private sector employment, unions are almost gone.
Well, that's what this is really about, Greg, which was the public sector unions, and that some people in the private sector are looking at their taxpayer dollars and thinking, wait, they have a guarantee of X, Y, and Z. Should they still have that, or can it be restructured a little bit differently to sustain it?
We want them just to live like us, and we don't want to subsidize their lifestyle. But I want to go back to what Eric says, which is really important. It really, in a weird way, it comes down to the Tea Party versus Occupy Wall Street. When you think about it, where was the Occupy Wall Street movement during this? They were down twinkling in a gutter. Maybe that's why Barrett lost, because they were all in jail. And it goes back to the Democratic Party and Obama. They're like choosing bad boyfriends. They choose the recall and Occupy Wall Street, and then they pretend like they never dated the jerk. But meanwhile, the Republicans chose Mr. Right. Mr. Right was the Tea Party. They've always been there for you.
Oh, come
on.
This is a great
metaphor. I stick by it. Juan.
I love your metaphors, but let me just say before I get you mad at me too, let me just say that if you ask the American people about the Tea Party is less popular now than they've ever been.
So wrong.
They don't have to be popular.
Can I clarify?
No. Let me finish this point. And Occupy Wall Street actually has a higher standing despite all the terrible things that are said.
And the reason why I said I wish Bob was here, not because I didn't want you here, is because Bob, he says the same exact thing about the Tea Party. The unsung hero in this whole Scott Walker thing is the Tea Party. They were the grassroots. It wasn't
grassroots.
They were the grassroots.
Let me tell you who the unsung hero is. The Koch brothers. The big money.
That's
the big money.
Dana,
That's what the left has.
Dana and I bet before the show, Koch brothers were going to come up before the B block.
It
Absolutely.
was in the B block, so maybe I win. We got to run though.
Two-headed
directly
demon
ahead.
metaphor,
We're going to how Charles Krauthammer said last night he thinks Bill Clinton is a double agent working against President Obama. The White House must be thinking that with friends like these, we'll try and figure out exactly what President Clinton is up to when we come back.